Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's show. I'm Dr. Melissa, your host, and I am absolutely thrilled to bring to you today's guest, Dr. Janice Hughes. She is an author, she's a business coach, and a financial leadership expert. And today, she's going to help us to really get our mindset around money and tactical, practical strategies of how we can move with certainty through uncertain financial times. Dr. Janice, thank you so much for being here with us.
You're welcome, and quite the time in the world that we're actually talking about money. We can plan these things, or we can have these conversations so long in advance about doing this, and it's just a really crazy and imperfect time right now in the world. So thanks for having the conversation today.
I think it's important now more than ever. I mean, money is obviously something that makes the world go round. It's a part of our everyday life. And in a time like we are in now with COVID, this immediate sudden disruption brings to light this foundational kind of fear of, is there enough? Right? And so even for the most abundant-minded individual, it can still trigger that primitive brain that's surveying for threats, and this idea that there may not be enough money can really trigger some very kind of, disruptive emotions and feelings. And so it is definitely a perfectly imperfect time. And so I'm excited that you're going to support us in understanding a little bit more about these emotions and how to not just kind of be held by them and what we can do to become proactive with them.
Well, it's interesting. I was so fortunate years ago to have an amazing mentor that taught me, it's kind of like the sine wave. Like if we think about the waveform, and I'll draw it with my fingers for somebody who might not know, but that kind of the wave goes up and then the wave comes down and then the wave goes up. And years ago, when I had nothing but debt, had graduated, all of the let me freak out modes, he really taught me that you don't make decisions from the very peak. And more importantly, you don't make them from the very bottom. And I think this applies to money anytime, but most of us make emotional decisions when it comes to money, purchasing, our wants versus our needs. And so right now, with this outer world like craziness and total fear, and we begin to lock down, I think it's just really important to recognize that. And I kind of talk to people about, there's sort of a basic overriding theme that there are some things we can control and some things we can't. And that my definition of wisdom is that I can recognize and know the difference.
Nice.
Because what's keeping most people up, and I have calls from anyone I've ever coached or connected with and talked to, and professionals, and it's, wait a minute, if we can at least start to measure that. We can't control what's going to happen in the economy in 30 days or 60 days. What does this mean for me this week or this day or this hour? And what actions can that drive? And the challenge is it's changing every moment. Now, life is really like that normally, but we don't realize it because we kind of float along, or we've gotten used to what we know. And so this brings up all that unknown. But I think if we can start from that place, as a coach, I like to help people feel a little more empowered. So even if it's, okay, wait a minute, I can't control that, but let me turn my attention to what I can. You start to feel differently about it because suddenly you breathe and you manage your state and go, okay, I'm going to need to think about that. I'm not telling you that there's not going to be 30 days or 120-day ramifications. And yet right now, what do we do with what's right in front of us? So I think that that's just an important way that we go into this conversation.
Absolutely. So we're really framing it. So again, it's kind of like just facing the facts of there are elements to this that we cannot control and that may be uncertain. Yet if we choose to look through the lens of certainty, or what we do know, what we are able to be in control of, then from that place we can each be really empowered to make smarter choices first and foremost, so that we're not at the top or the bottom. We're not freaking out in either extreme. We're really more in at least I like to say, let's at least get to a neutral state, right? If we're kind of neutral, not super charged up either way, that we can be almost an observer of ourselves or the process, then we can we can gain a lot of information. And with that information that we gain from ourselves, we can make the appropriate decisions for ourselves that really resonate and feel good as we move through. So thank you for framing that. And I know that it is important to really kind of jump into, I was listening to a report the other day, and there are some really profound numbers, like more than 58% of all Americans right now, and I don't know the numbers globally, and I know we have listeners from all over the world, but at least in the US, more than 58% of our population has less than $1,000 in their savings account.
Right.
And so, we have a huge range of many of us have businesses, we have employees, we have overhead, we have other people's lives that we're thinking about. Also, like, how do we support them? Some of us are on the other end. We're an hourly employee. We have less than $1,000. It is more of a paycheck to paycheck situation. So regardless of kind of where we're at on the spectrum to the situations we might be in right now, where would you have us begin, Janice, to start to gain some control and resilience over this process?
Yeah, it's interesting. I call it a principle I really like. In financial leadership years ago, I created what I call 12 principles. And literally principle number 2 is know your numbers. The smartest thing to do right now is just sit back down and run through your numbers. And so for any of us with businesses, you're going to do your personal numbers, and I like to call it, what is your basic nut? What does it take to run your household? And I want people to think in terms of, I get it. We've got a lot of discretionary written in there. Some of you may be able to keep the discretionary, and some of you may need to put some pause on some discretionary. I'm going to give the example of a gym membership. If you have a gym membership, now, some of us in the health field would like to say, well, that is a need, but you could also go outside to do things. So maybe you're running your numbers and you take a look and you even break out, what are my needs versus my wants versus my likes? Because really, the more you can get that clarity on what are your hard needs in your personal life and in your professional life. And I think that that's just such an empowering place. Like, most of us kind of sort of know those. And I don't say to come at it just in a fear mode, but, information is empowering. And then some people will go, okay, well, wait a minute. Here's 3 things I can either cut, or I'm going to suggest, from a coaching principle, I always like to say, you never know unless you ask. So let me give you an example about, you may be able to ask the gym whether you could have, your fees frozen for 2 months. You won't know that until you ask. And every company is going to be able to handle that differently. Every, sort of discretionary thing is going to handle it differently. Some of you who even rent, you may be able to say to your landlord, these are unprecedented times. What happens? What are we going to look at over the next 3 months? And fortunately, some commercial, buildings, and or some, if you rent, from, say, a condo unit, some may be in a position to be the companies that can help right now. But we don't know until we ask. So I think it's really important to be willing. Some of it, is, I think a lot of times we put so much emotion around money, wow, I'll feel terrible if I have to, or I was hoping to never have to do that. I get it. Right now, I want you to think about, there's something called fact versus fiction. And the fiction is all the emotion we bring to the numbers. So if we can just sit down and go, what is my basic nut at home? And if you're a business owner, what is my basic nut in business? And just gaining that information, I think, is the first step for people to do right now.
Well, and what I like about what you've just said is, there are some people out there that are saying, just get rid of things, right? And it's kind of like this really, like you said, it's the top of the wave or the bottom of the wave. And I really do subscribe to the fact of let's not make knee-jerk reactions, right? Like we don't have to go to doom and gloom. There is a medium ground. And if we go into neutral and observe, and I love how you're saying what's fact, what's fiction, if we take the emotional charge out of it, if we are able to at least give ourselves permission to ideally stop fully, but if you can't stop fully, at least give yourself permission to press pause on
Yes.
judging, blaming, shaming, coulda, woulda, shoulda yourself about, well, I should have been prepared, or how did I even get here? And I mean, that's, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. None of it does. And that's not going to put you in a resourceful state. This is about how can we become resourceful, even more resourceful than before. And what you just said that I really want to highlight is that you don't know until you ask. And so the answer doesn't have to be just cut everything, just get rid of stuff. When you know what are needs and what are needs that are truly important and necessary to you, instead of going holy moly, like I don't know what to do, when you pick up the phone, when you reach out, when you write an email, you will get an answer. So you just don't know until you ask. They may say, absolutely. Businesses are planning. They are looking. They are figuring out how do we continue to value and serve our customers, our clients, and still maintain our brand in the marketplace. So I love that point. And I'd say as you're making your list of wants and needs, or needs and fact versus fiction, are there some phone calls? Are there some emails that you could make to ask before feeling like you need to make a knee-jerk reaction?
And I think that that's where it helps us stay in today and tomorrow and the next day. So just as an example, I was supposed to be on a vacation right now, and it was through timeshare points. And if we canceled and the points were supposed to have been banked by last December, if we weren't going to use them, and you just have no idea. We reached out via email to customer service. Obviously, we canceled. We canceled right away 2 weeks ago. But we basically just wrote and said, I know it's a really unprecedented time. Typically, I know your policy is that we would then lose all of those points. And those are of significant value to us. Is there something that could be done? We didn't bank them because we booked something. And within 24 hours, we got the email back that said, absolutely, we will bank those and you can use them anywhere over the next 5 years. Unprecedented. And so my response back was, I appreciate your individual looking into this.
Yes.
That was whoever that customer service person was, not just about their company, but so literally we wouldn't have known. My assumption typically is use it or lose it means use it or lose it. But we had nothing to lose by writing and asking. And so there will be certain examples of that. There'll be some that the answer is no, but we are also better with the information. Yeah. If you as a business owner have asked the landlord about anything that can be done short term and the answer is no, well, now you know what you're dealing with. Now you can even turn around and say, well, now I need to talk to my banker. If I have business loans, maybe that can be put on hold while I am servicing my rent or my, sort of lease payment. So I think it's just really important that we just have no idea. And those things are changing quickly. And the other thing I've been hearing a lot of, especially I have some previous clients that have done very, very well in business, and yet literally they're not super liquid, because our challenge is it's really about the cash flow. And if you don't have reserves, you can't magically just pretend you have them. But that's where another action step is already begin to apply for the aid. Even if you're the person that says, I never thought I would be in this position. Well, again, fact versus fiction, those are emotions about it. Even if you're approved, that doesn't mean you have to spend those dollars. But if you have those reserves, if you have that reserve sitting there, I'm going to tell you, you feel different. Yeah. The people who have $5,000 in a bank account versus some that maybe have $1,000, I'm not saying they're immune, but they suddenly feel a little less stressed today. That doesn't change a lot in the big picture, but it feels differently. So I think take action. If you're a small business owner, apply for the SBA loans.
Yeah.
That's not saying go spend them. Now, even if you say, well, but that's not really my money, I agree. And yet, if you can get a loan at a smaller percentage down the road, if everything is in recovery, hopefully sooner than later, you could use those less costly dollars to service a more costly loan to get it done or to get it down to make those changes.
Yeah. And let's talk about that. I mean, so here's a few things. So right now we're hearing fact versus fiction, run your numbers, right? So let's just really get our finger on the pulse of what's reality. You've given us some great strategies of make some phone calls. Like once you know, now you know. How can we right now use this opportunity as we get stable, make some sound decisions? How can we leverage this time so that it's not always, well, when this happens, when this happens, when this happens? How can we prepare right now for a new, enhanced, financially sound future?
Yeah, great question. The short version is give more now. And when I say that, I don't mean if you don't have dollars to now go spend money. Money equals energy. Money is about a flow. You give of a talent, you give a product, you give a service, and there's an exchange coming back. Right now, give. So find the ways to do that. Like a little example, every morning after a little bit of quiet time, I just trust that there will be 5 people or names that I'm meant to reach out to. Check on them, check on their family. Unfortunately, someone I know in Arizona has a sick family member on the East Coast with COVID, and I didn't know that until I reached out, and I haven't connected with her in over a year. So all of a sudden just give more, in your business. This is where it's unbelievable. Some people, if you can't have an actual meeting, they're calling up a coffee shop and putting a credit and saying, for all the people that we were going to meet, go pick up your coffee on us, and then we'll get on Zoom and we'll have a virtual meeting. Like that's giving, and that's some coffees that you're giving to someone else. So now that business is in a position where they have a bit of reserves. They don't have a lot, but they realized that it was important to still have that meeting and to do that. I know a few practitioners who have people on basically some actual care plans, financial care plans. And at the very beginning of this, before there was, are we open, are we closed? There was so much unknown, but they basically announced to their whole patient base that anything above and beyond what is the plan they were paying for at this point was on them through May 1st. That they're giving more services. They realize in a time of need that people may need more. Now, some may not be coming in, some might, but they just wanted people to know that they're there to serve them.
And I love that, the art of giving, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but this was super timely. I've been talking a lot to our community about this, that when we think of what are ways that we can give more right now, because it's kind of, as you're saying, money is energy. So as we give, there's also a receiving, right? So this energetic flow of abundance, of connection, of value exchange. And, the internet is such a powerful tool when we think about this time. And so I love the simplicity of go old school. Like, let's just pick up the phone, pick up the phone and check on people, send some texts, send some emails, and depending on what your expertise is or your lane, if you are a business owner, if you're an influencer, if you're a leader on any level, you can show up more now than ever in the online space. And the value that you can give is just the reminder that you are there. You
Yes.
see them, you understand. It's about being able to hold a space without judgment, saying, it's okay, whatever's happening for you. You're not alone. I got you. I'm here. I'm just showing up to check in on you. I'm showing up to tell you what just happened in our house today, to share a humanistic connection. And you'd be amazed at the power of that value exchange of just being willing to show up when so many are kind of hunkering down.
Yeah.
It allows them to feel like, oh, wait, that's my doctor, that's my coach, that's my friend, that's my hairstylist. And look, she's showing me how to trim my bangs from home right now. That's amazing. How cool is that?
Yes, because otherwise, I don't know if you've seen that meme out there that, is talking about, it's all like, we're going back to the era where when our parents used to cut our hair, and the meme is like all the kids with the bangs on the angles, and like, I had those. I had those the time my dad cut my hair. So that hairdresser that is putting on a little Zoom or creating this video about that, they're reaching out, they're staying in relationship. Now, as we social distance, even more than ever, it's about your relationship. People buy your product, they partake of your service, they come into your doors, whether those are real brick and mortar doors or virtual doors, because of the relationship and the value that you add to them. Announcements are all over the place right now. Yale, you can take their happiness course for no fees. Different companies are opening up databases, so that you can listen to their previous content or content that would cost you a lot of money in the past. They're just opening that up. So you're right, that online piece, and thank goodness in many ways that we have it, because that's unprecedented. Back in 1918, with the last real sort of health scare, there was no such thing as that. So how can we be so thankful and appreciative, or come up with some videos? I know a couple of practitioners that are 3 times a week right now doing classes that are live, but that they also then take through Zoom so that they can make that available to the rest of their patient database.
Absolutely. And one of my friends is a chef, and he's been doing the quarantine cafe. Every day at lunchtime, he's going live, and he is doing doing a recipe and sharing. And so it's, I really love seeing our opportunities to continue to connect as a global community, as a human community, are ways to move through the discomfort. One of my friends was saying how she and her girlfriends have been doing a wine. They get their glass of wine and they all get on Zoom together, and it's their mom time, right? So now what's beautiful, and this is, if we really think about this, and this does go to our financial wealth and our well-being, is that we are now looking for ways to connect, right? Just 2 weeks ago, we were all so busy in our normal lives. It was kind of like, oh yeah, we should connect soon. We should get time. We should grab coffee soon together, right? And we all say it and we mean it. Yet it's kind of like, well, everything else is more busy. The schedule, I got to get to the soccer field. I got to get this. I got to do that meeting. And so now what's really great is that we are going, okay, well, I'm still getting all my work done, or I'm working in new ways, and I really do want to connect, and I want to share what I'm able to share. I want to connect with other people. So lots of gifts.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. A whole era of people, practitioners in a certain group that I used to coach, are all laughing. They're all messaging me, calling me. One of the things I used to talk about with financial leadership was find places you can have reserves that don't cost you a lot. So I used to give the example of going to Costco and buying extra toilet paper. And that was literally an assignment that I gave people. So they built up your stores of reserves. And isn't it interesting, because it so hit me as well. Like, we had always consistently had reserves. And then I don't know if you notice in the background, I have nothing on my shelves because we're in the stages of moving. We're packing up a house to move. And so we had been letting our stores go down, and nowhere was it more an appropriate time to be talking about abundance can come from that feeling of having enough toilet paper. Yeah. So, I don't love that any of us are going through it. And yet it's also sometimes that appreciation of, literally family members around a table without everybody having their nose in their phone all of a sudden. You know, that you're connecting sometimes with your kids that half the time they're not in the house at all, or they're flying out in the morning and you see them, you know, when they go to bed at night. So just looking somewhere, that's like I'm saying, give more right now. Also become that much more aware. Like, where do you have a reserve of something? If it's not money, is it a resource? Is it people? And just like hone in on that. If it's people, find those ways, like you say, to have a Zoom connect time with them, or something that allows you to be connected.
And then do you have any suggestions right now, Janice, on opportunities to create abundance and profitability? So yes, we're going to make lists, we're going to get strategic, and we're going to ask questions. We're going to see what we can potentially defer, what could be, you know, some allowances that could be made to be smart with what we do have. And then also, let's talk for a moment about the key opportunity to pivot right now. Because I think what we can probably all agree on is that while life will go back to normal in a much shorter than probably anticipated time, it's going to be a new normal. And this is causing the entire globe to look at life differently.
Yes.
It's giving us time to pause, to reflect. And so how can we pivot? And instead of waiting, well, let's just see what happens in 3, 4, 6, 8 weeks. What, if anything, do you recommend that we can be looking at, considering, doing now that will position us for profitability, for abundance, for increased wealth, for financial security, for sure, as well as the opportunity for financial freedom?
Yeah. What are those things that you're creating now that it might be down the road that you're monetizing? So those people I'm giving examples of that are, because they aren't, say, connecting one-on-one with patients, that they're now creating this video series. Well, how do you store it, package it in a way, already creatively think about what's the look and the feel? That's probably a product that you're going to sell or give people access to. Now, down the road. Now, that might just be that it's for your people that are already clients, that it's gifted to them. That would still be value added. But it might be that you turn around and you're selling that down the road. You know, are there new things that you're learning or trying? You know, some people are writing more right now, you know, that have always said, well, when I have more time, I'll write. Well, could you already think about, does that end up becoming a book deal? Now, I'm not saying, again, there's so many aspects of that we can't control, but you're right. Like, of these new things, we're having to dig deeper. Or instead of saying, well, I'll do that down the road, if you're doing something, can you already be thinking about what that could add? You know, is that an ability to add to your home bottom line down the road? You know, could you begin to think that creatively about it?
Right. And what this brings to mind for me is necessity is the mother of invention. And so while you're in your day-to-day, your new norm, what are you noticing? Be it within yourself, within your own home and family, as you look out in your local community, because we can all look out and still connect by phone, through social media. So what are the conversations? What are the things that are coming up? And I'm not suggesting just a pain point, but what is something that is coming up? Look for the patterns, look for the threads, because life is revealing new information to us. And so if you're willing to, again, kind of change that perspective and look through the lens of possibility and profitability or potential, all those good P words, then you may begin to notice new ideas that will emerge from this time. So I'm just being called to kind of share to the conversation. Think about what maybe you don't even know yet. Just approach the day with fresh eyes of curiosity. And again, if you lean in and you share value, you'll stay connected in a communication and a conversation that people will continue to give you more information back. So there may be something that you're going to discover, that you're going to invent, that you're going to collaborate on. You may connect with people that you never thought you could connect with during this time, because some people really are shutting down. They're in such distress and fear, while others, I was saying yesterday, I was teaching a class, on how to go virtual in your business. And literally I said, this is the time of the underdog. And I just get chills when I hear it. Like it was a divine kind of intervention that spoke through me. And like, if we think about it, this is the World Series, right? Like we're in the 7th inning, and the team that you always thought was going to win, they are falling apart right now. Like this is the time of the underdog. This is anybody's game in this moment in time. And so if we recognize that there's new opportunities, there's new inspiration that could come, that could inform a new business venture. Even if you're just an hourly employee and you're just like, well, I don't really consider myself an entrepreneur. Who knows what you're going to see and who you're going to interact with and how you might be able to connect online in ways that maybe didn't seem quite as accessible or possible a few weeks ago. And
I think that, let me expand that even a little bit more, because I think as we're talking about money, the great news, I've been talking about this for the last 5 and 10 years, that, how do you plan a tenure exit strategy from what you're doing, and have plans that aren't the norm, like that aren't, say, the things that are taking the hit, like people who have done, say, some traditional investing even are really, really taking a hit. Whereas I can show you a lot of people and a lot of clients, as I've talked about vitalistic approaches to money, that they're in a really good position right now. They're in a cash position. And I think that is available to everyone, no matter whether you're hourly, no matter what you do. I'm very hopeful. And something for your listeners, I am happy to do a phone call or a reach out and connect them to people that I call them financial coaches that are in my network, that don't charge anything to help people. They do it and help people just get into a stronger position. And there are some financial venues and avenues out there that, my hope is people get really creative about this now and go, I can look differently at my plan. Like I would love that everybody I work with, we talk about what is your tenure exit strategy. Not so you have to leave, but so that if there's a casualty, a life situation, a world situation like this, that you're in a very, very different place. And I think that's a big opportunity, not only for new things you can build and create, but literally even what you can do with the money you have is very different. And so I'm really hoping that pivots a lot of people.
I love it. And as we think about kind of the tenure exit strategy, it is this idea that, one of the greatest gifts of disruption is new innovation and invention. And so you just said, how a lot of people right now, if we think of what we can learn from this is to see what's taking the biggest hit, so to speak. So when we look at some of these traditional places where wealth, the stock market, for example, stock market is taking a huge hit. And I know a lot of people that in the last few weeks, everything changed on a dime. And so what, used to be who used to be very financially abundant is now not that. And that's a whole new level of holy camoli, now what do I do? Yet, if we think about this is what's so cool. Like, let's think about disruption. Let's think about some of those unicorn businesses. Let's think about when Airbnb came to market and all of a sudden completely disrupted what was happening just in traditional hotels. We think about investments. So there's new ways. So just the other day, I also heard that and Amazon was a huge disruptor, right? Amazon, whatever you do or don't think about it, if we just look at it from a standpoint of innovation, they saw an opportunity and they created the most robust platform. And they right now, during this time when the stock
they're hiring,
they're winning. They're hiring over 100,000 new employees. So if we were to think tactically, practically, right here, right now, like this is a great time. Learn how you can have your own Amazon business. Go ahead and do it. There's tons of free classes right now. Like, could you be an Amazon seller? That's a possibility, right? If that's a platform that's winning, that hasn't been shaken by this economic time, that's what I'm saying. Look around for what is stable and thriving. And does that inspire you? Is there a way that you can learn from that you can learn about that? So maybe you're not going to start your own Amazon store overnight. Yet, this could be a really great opportunity as we're thinking tenure exit strategy, as we're future focusing so that instead of hunkering down in fear and feeling out of control and uncertain and how am I going to get through this, like you said in the beginning of this interview, Janice, it's really going, let's run our numbers, let's know what we're dealing with, let's have the facts in front of us so we can face it with action, with inspired action. And now, when you can look forward, even if you don't have thousands and millions of dollars today, maybe you only got a couple hundred, it's okay. You have what you need in this moment, and then you can use this moment to build a new, vibrant future so that we are evolving. I see this as an amazing opportunity to evolve in a very fiscally sound way.
So let me give you a really concrete example. My 22-year-old, and again, I guess it's out of even my three sons, I think he's the one that has listened the most. He, while being a college student, has had a part-time job, and with his money DNA has never been frivolous. He's known his numbers. He's been putting some money away. So he's in a cash position, unlike most entire households and families. And more importantly, I had introduced him to a financial coach who had helped him do his first investment that is so strong and sound right now because of the kind of investment that it is. And it's an investment that will allow him in the next 4 years to be able to borrow against the cash value position to buy himself a condo. Now, with the way of the world, he might even be able to do it sooner. But I want people to understand, like, that's not magical. Like, that's on a part-time job while he's been going to college. So I want people to understand, like, it can be that practical as well. Like, that's an hourly rate, working part-time, just knowing some of those tools and what and how to do things with those dollars. So, like, there's just so many things that go into it. So it sounds great when we're also thinking entrepreneurially, but then some people listening are going, wait a minute, I don't think that's me. I just want people to have unbelievable hope that if you can give of your time and your energy or connect with people, think about abundance, know your numbers. And then let's think about how we take different actions with our dollars that allow anybody to be in that kind of position that my 22-year-old is in.
And Janice, is it still important? Because that's really great. And I love that understanding of, look, he's doing it on a part-time job, hourly rate, nothing magical, just some sound strategies and steps. So two parts to this question. First, I want to know if you can direct us to anybody listening, where are those sound practical strategies? Because I'm sure that's a longer conversation, and maybe that happens one-on-one with a coach. And so I want to know about that. And I also want to understand that, would you suggest to our audience that it is still a time to, so even if there is only X amount of money coming in, is it still important to save some of it? Like, are we still in a saving mindset as well, or an investing mindset? Maybe that's the better term versus saving. So are we still in an investing mindset? And how do we connect to some of those smart, simple steps that sound great, but where do we learn about that to know how I can take $20 a week, $100 a week, put it into something that becomes really sound, that in 5 years, 10 years, I can reinvest from it and really.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to answer your second part first. Still pay yourself first. So in some way, it might not be that if you go and you do your basic nut and there's just nothing there, well then, is there something you can add or creatively come up with that would bring a little bit more in that is paying yourself first? Is that $10, $50 a week, something that can still have you feel that? The son I'm describing, I really think this comes from the fact that when he was in the 9th grade, I started something with him that was called the 52-week money challenge. He, at that point, was a triple sport athlete, no time to work, But what we did was the first week of January, we called week one, obviously, and we put $1 away. I was the keeper of the money. I took the money into envelopes and he put $1 away. We all did. Week two, we put $2 a week. Week 40, we put $40 a week away. And so for him, he had some Christmas money from grandparents that helped in all those early weeks. And a buddy helped somebody else move in the summer, so he had some money in those weeks. And then he knew that come those real heavy weeks of 50, 51, and 52, he was getting more Christmas money from his grandparents. And so at the end of all of that, I was able to hand him his stack of just shy of $1,400. So that's on, the same thing. I want us to be really practical. Some people have nothing right now. So is it $1 a week? Is it $2 a week? Is it like those little bits? But what it's doing is it's creating the discipline. So that's the same son. And I think there's no coincidence that, again, like literally, like what's that, 8, 9 years later, he's in the position he is because that became a pattern for him. So I think that is a principle that's really important to me, that really, even as a business owner, if you are cutting back, what are multiple places to cut so you're just not cutting everything from yourself first? Then the second part is, what are some resources? So absolutely, like just please don't hesitate to share my email. Like literally, I'm happy to connect people. There's a network. The challenge with a lot of our traditional financial planners and planning is that not everyone has the same, I'm going to call it, background. There's a difference between planning versus coaching. And there's also a lot of difference between being charged fees to learn these things. And I was really lucky, that ebook that I sent you, when I first co-authored a money book, I got to be able to be around something, called a money think tank. And I was around people that were so far ahead of anywhere I will ever be. But the resources and connections that come from that. So I am happy to help provide people with connections. And I'm not a planner. I'm not a financial person, other than my focus has always been on how to empower people with money mindset and money strategies. And then I absolutely send people to great resources that don't charge them anything to do that. So by all means, you can make sure that people have my contact information.
Perfect. Well, we will absolutely do that. There's been so many gems today, and I'm absolutely grateful for your value and your contribution today. So thank you so much, Janice Hughes, financial leader. What an amazing conversation. So everybody, of course, there'll be links below of how you can reach out to her directly. So if you want to be connected to some of the resources she shared with us today, it'll be available to you. And it's just important to remember, it's okay right now. We're all in this together. So regardless of kind of what's been, doesn't matter. Be here in the moment now. Face it. Give yourself permission to just look at it neutrally. Get your facts versus the fiction. Take the emotion out of it. Make some phone calls. Be proactive for yourself. And then from there, begin to look future forward. Where can you serve? How can you show up with value? Even if it's just calling a friend you haven't spoken to in a long time and just sharing the value of compassion, kindness, true caring, and human connection. Together, when we share in this energy exchange, then that is where the abundance continues to grow. And I can tell you, what awaits us is true prosperity. Even if it doesn't feel like it in this moment, it's okay. Be with it, breathe in it, and through it, and continue to connect. As we connect, we transform together. I thank everybody for tuning in today. Again, Dr. Janice Hughes, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Everybody, until the next episode, continue to make your impact.